Hello, dear students. Welcome again. And today we have the last session of this chapter, Paths to Modernization. And we can see Japan and China, the flags of the two countries, fluttering high here. Establishing the new democracy. The People's Republic of China government was established in the year 1949, and this was based on the principles of new democracy, an alliance of all social classes, unlike the dictatorship of the proletariat the Soviet Union said it had established. Critical areas of the economy were put under government control, and private enterprise and private ownership of land were gradually ended. This program lasted till 1953, when the government declared that it would launch a program of socialist transformation. The Great Leap Forward movement is again a very important event. This was launched in 1958 by Mao, and this policy was to industrialize China rapidly. And now, in this process, people were encouraged to set up steel furnaces even in the backyards of their houses. In rural areas, people's communes were started where they would get together and carry out agriculture. By 1958, there were about 26,000 communes covering 98% of the farm population. Mao was able to mobilize the masses to attain the goals set by the party. Mao Zedong wanted to create what he called the socialist man, and he said that this socialist man must have 5 loves, and these 5 loves are fatherland, that is the country, the people, labor, science, and public property. Mass organizations were created for farmers, women, students, and various other groups. All China Democratic Women's Federation was set up, All China Students Federation. Then in 1953-54, some were urging for more attention to industrial organization and economic growth. Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping tried to modify the commune system as they felt was not working very efficiently. The steel produced in the backyard furnaces was also unusable industrially. Then there were conflicting visions. The Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution in 1965-75. Mao Zedong launched this movement to counter his critics. In the year 1965, the Red Guards, that consisted mainly of the students and the army, was used for this campaign against the old culture, old customs, and old habits. Students and professionals were sent to the countryside to learn from the masses, and the ideology was being communist was more important than having professional knowledge. This cultural revolution weakened the party. It severely disrupted the economy as well as the education system. Deng Xiaoping came to power after Mao Zedong, and cultural revolution came to an end. Deng Xiaoping introduced a socialist market economy. In 1978, the party declared its goal as 4 modernizations, and these 4 modernizations were to develop science, industry, agriculture, and defense. Now, debate was allowed as long as the party was not questioned. That means nobody could question the party or what the party did. There was an exciting explosion of new ideas in 1978, as at the time of the May 4th movement 60 years earlier in 1919. Then came the wall poster, the fifth modernization. On 5th December 1978, a wall poster saying the fifth modernization proclaimed that without democracy, all other modernization would come to nothing. They would be of no use if the people don't have the right to choose their own government. It went on to criticize the CCP for not solving the problem of poverty or ending sexual exploitation. In 1989, on the 70th anniversary of the May 4th movement, many intellectuals called for a greater openness, and they wanted to end the ossified dogmas, which in their language was Su Shaozi. Students demonstrators at Tiananmen Square in Beijing were brutally repressed. The post-reform period from after 1978, debates were going on ways to develop China. Number one, the dominant view was based on strong political control, economic liberalization, and integration into the world market. And this view was supported by the Communist Party. Second, this view said inequalities between social groups, between regions, and between men and women are creating social tensions and the heavy emphasis on the market. Third, China can build a modern society following its own traditions rather than simply copying the West. Now let's look at the story of Taiwan. Taiwan had been a Japanese colony since the Chinese ceded it after 1894-95 war with Japan. The Cairo Declaration 1943 and the Potsdam Proclamation 1949 restored sovereignty to China. Massive demonstrations in February 1947 had led to GMD to brutally kill a whole generation of leading figures. Chiang Kai shek, defeated by the CCP, fled in 1949 to Taiwan. Chiang Kai shek established the Republic of China in Taiwan. The Kuomintang or GMD under Chiang Kai shek established a repressive government. It carried out land reforms that increased agricultural productivity and also modernized the economy. In 1973, Taiwan had a GNP second only to that of Japan in Asia, which was very good. Gap between the rich and poor also was steadily declining. Then there was a dramatic transformation of Taiwan into a democracy after the death of Chiang in 1975. This transformation started. Martial law was lifted in 1987 and opposition parties were also legally permitted. The first free elections began the process of bringing the Taiwanese people to power. Diplomatically, most countries have only trade missions in Taiwan. Full democratic relations and embassies are not possible as Taiwan is considered to be a part of China. The question of reunification with the mainland remains still a contentious issue. The cross-strait relations, that is between Taiwan and China, have been improving. Now let's look at the two roads to modernization. What road was followed by Japan and how China did that. Japan was successful in retaining its independence. It used traditional skills and practices in new ways. Its elite driven modernization generated an aggressive nationalism, sustained a repressive regime that stifled dissent and demands for democracy. It established a colonial empire. Japan's program of modernization was carried out in an environment dominated by Western imperial powers. While it imitated them, it also attempted to find its own solutions. Japan creatively used tradition in new, different ways. The Meiji school system was modeled on European and American practices and it introduced new subjects, but the curriculum's main objective was to make loyal citizens. A course on morals was stressed on loyalty to the emperor was compulsory, and changes in the family or in daily life show how foreign and indigenous ideas were brought together to create something new. Now, the Chinese path to modernization was different. China experienced foreign imperialism, both Western and Japanese. It was ruled by weak Qing dynasty, breakdown of political and social order leading to immense misery for most of the people. There was warlordism, there was banditry and civil war. All this exacted a heavy toll on the human lives. Savagery of the Japanese invasion and natural disasters also added to the burden. The CCP and its supporters fought to put an end to tradition, which they saw as keeping the masses in poverty, the women subjugated, and the country underdeveloped. While calling for power to the people, it built a highly centralized state. It removed centuries old inequalities, spread education, and raised consciousness among the people. The party carried out market reforms and was also successful in making China economically powerful. But today, its political system continues to be very tightly controlled. The society faces growing inequalities as well as revival of traditions long suppressed. This new situation again poses the question how China can develop while retaining its heritage. So that's for the Chinese government to look at and the Chinese people to work towards it. So with this we come to end of this chapter. I hope these videos will help you in revising the chapter and preparing for your tests. Thank you everyone and have a nice day.